Hi, Chris DeLeon here of HomeTeamGameDev.com, and my video rotation today is going to be one of them about Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Stoicism, my version, Self-Calm, and the message today is just about when something goes wrong, calmly working our way through it. Doing something about it helps ground us, and in many ways, the natural things we want to try to do internally to elevate to panic are counterproductive to actually resolving the source of discomfort. And this is one when I've mentioned before that, like, for many, many years, Stoicism has been a part of my life. And the example I actually want to start from is not actually from the Hammond Translation Meditations, I'll read that one in a second, from 850, and the Self-Calm variation on the same part, but actually from my textbook, Hands-On Intro to Game Programming, which I think I wrote back in 2014 as like the second iteration. It started, maybe it was 2013 or 2012 at first, back when it was a processing before it was browser JavaScript on Canvas. But at the end of the introduction, I have a section called One Last Thing. Errors are a normal part of progress. Don't get discouraged when you encounter errors along the way. I'll repeat this later. It's ridiculously important. I work with many beginning game developers. All too often, I meet someone who feels like they're a bad programmer since they frequently encounter errors when trying to run their latest code. However, that's a perfectly normal part of programming. That doesn't just apply to beginners. I've been doing this for many years and I still get errors in my code. Then I fix them. When you're walking to get someplace outdoors and there's suddenly a tree in the way, how do you respond? Do you feel bad, like you planned your walking wrong? Do you get angry about it? Do you turn around and give up? No, of course not. You simply walk around it. Well, that's exactly how working through program errors has to be. Don't even break stride. Figuring out how to diagnose and repair the error feedback or unintended results on screen is important to practice for a game developer. A little frustration along the way is a positive sign that you're pushing yourself to learn. It means you're working through challenges that you didn't yet know how to do so that you can come away from it knowing how to do it. You'll even have playable evidence that shows you've done it. Welcome to video game development. And this is something I've especially noticed comes up for programmers, in part because one of the things that happens, right, is that when we grow up through school, we write a paper, we do a math assignment, we do a problem set, we hand it in, we get handed back with red errors marked. This was wrong, this was bad, it's too late, you lost these points. And often people have been through many years of that before they're first writing program code, and then suddenly they're getting red errors back from the compiler, from the web browser that's running the script, from Unity's development environment, from wherever they're building things. They try to do work, they get slapped down with red errors, and they think, I'm bad at this. Because if I did this in school, I would have done it wrong. And one of the first things we have to teach out of people to help get them becoming game developers to understand, no, that's not how this works here, or in fact in most places of reality outside of school. Those error feedbacks are then things to walk around calmly, like that tree in your way. Or the example from Hammond's translation of Meditations. Again, this is not a public domain one, but I figure a paragraph here and there is probably fine. This is first part of Book 8, Chapter 50, really paragraph 50. A bitter cucumber? Throw it away. Brambles in the path? Go round them. That is all you need, without going on to ask, so why are these things in the world anyway? That question would be laughable to a student of nature, just as any carpenter or cobbler would laugh at you if you objected to the sight of shavings or offcuts from the work on their shop floor. My version of that from Self-Calm, which again is free at self-calm.com, as a modernization of this text. 850 here from Self-Calm's version. If you bite into food and find it rotten, toss it out. If you're walking and find thorny weeds in your path, step around them. That is enough. You do not need to pause and complain aloud or get stuck pondering the unfairness of these inconveniences in the world. Accepting how reality works is as simple as taking in that food goes bad and thorns grow freely. These rough things in life happen for the same reason the woodworker's shop fills with sawdust, shavings, and scraps. That is, without them, the parts we do want couldn't exist. And goes on, but I think that's a relevant part. And this idea that when there's something that's not how it ought to be, it's natural to have an internal reaction. And one of the things I think is important to talk about with Stoicism, that it's not about suppressing that, it's not about denying that, it's never about pretending like that's not going on, but it is to then figure out, okay, well, that internal reaction can help maybe motivate my reaction to do something about it, but then thereafter calmly going about fixing the thing or accepting that certain things are going to unavoidably be a byproduct of things that are either beyond our control or a part of how the world works or so on, can sometimes help us in concentrating our energies where we can. We can only do a finite number of things. We can only do, we're all limited in the things we can do something about. And as much as we can prioritize our energy, our attention, our focus on what we can do, it's quite often different from sort of stewing in the unfortunateness of something's not how I wish it was. Something initially I had planned to walk, I found this tree, it's in my way, shoot, am I a failure, what have I done? And this kind of buildup, as silly as it seems for that kind of case, is surprisingly common internally, where it's much harder to keep a proportion to what is a big deal, what's a small deal. And I know on top of, there's a lot of other things happening in the world lately that of course have a lot of people understandably stressed out in terms of their health, their family health, their work situation, economy problems, and so on. One of the things that can happen from that is that it elevates us so close to the line of being upset that we might not even notice, because we do a decent enough job, we have to, of kind of treading water just below the surface, if you will, of 80, 85%, maybe 90, 95% close to that line of what it would take for me to become counterproductively upset, to the point that then something little might tip us over. And this is something I know back when I kind of went back to this material as part of prompting me to produce the self-calm stuff. I was having a family health situation for about a span of a half of a year. And during that time, I would catch myself where, like, I don't know, I'd be replacing a battery on something and the case would slip, or I would drop something, or just very trivial, unimportant things would seem to send me over the line of just being very overwhelmed by it. And then it just even helped even just to zoom out and recognize that it was not that one thing that did it. That was the proverbial straw on the camel's back. It was this one thing on top of everything else that we're dealing with. And part of what I like about this mindset, which again originates back from at least one of many people I'm sure to speak it, and is part of the nice thing about Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, is he even acknowledges in the entire first chapter, so many of these ideas are not his. He's not claiming them. He's not taking credit for them. He begins the whole chapter with, here's the dozens and dozens of people in his life, his teachers, his art teachers, his tutors, his parents, his family members that he's learned these things from. What he's sharing is this idea that any given thing going wrong, rather than letting it add to that stack of things that we're kind of silently bearing, recognizing where possible that occasionally, frame it instead as, here's just an obstacle to go around. In the same way as programmers, when we have an error in our code, we have to look at that not as a mistake, but as just part of the process of how we feel our way through the thing. Of how, okay, well, I'm still going to walk to the destination. I'm going to go around this. And that is how we walk. And the same thing's true in business. If you're trying something in business and it's not working, you pivot a bit, you try something different, you take information from that exchange. Same thing's certainly true in design. Same thing's true in all kinds of creative tasks, music, art, and so on. You produce a thing. The people you wanted to be impressed by it, or the people you were hoping to attract the attention of, aren't interested in what it is. And you're left to then think about, okay, well, depending on what your objectives are, if it's to entertain yourself and express yourself, by all means, keep your thing the way it is. And I certainly do my share of freeware game development. But if your goal is to entertain and reach more people, then it puts you back in this case of, okay, well, it doesn't mean I did something wrong. It means I'm getting feedback. I found an obstacle in the way. I'm still walking the direction to the destination I wanted to reach. And you can calmly set about doing something about it in the realm of things that we can do stuff about, rather than having it, I say, push us closer to that tipping point, or upsetting us, or concentrating on the unfairness of it, which it may not be the way it should be. It may be problematic, unfortunate, not ideal, but the way we make those things more the way they ought to be, the way we can make them work the way we intend, is often to, where possible, and not to get anybody's feelings or reactions to anything, but it is, how can I keep a level head through this to do something about it, to set about untying the tangles, to set about correcting things that are not how they ought to be able to think with enough practical clarity that I can get to a better result, or that I can realize a solution that might not have been available to me if I was feeling too bogged down and overwhelmed by things I was unhappy with the state of, as opposed to feeling even just a little bit of control of doing something about it, which of course is part of why the self-calm stuff weaves in with, I know 1 out of 3 of my videos here are self-command related. It's one of those things that when we can do something about something, it helps us maintain a little bit more of this attitude of, I'm not stuck, I'm not at a dead end, I have tools available to me to help me push around this. That's it for the day. As always, if you want more of this kind of stuff, self-calm.com is the free ebook version of it, and the audiobook's bundled with self-command at self-command.com. Catch you another day.